What's going on, everyone? In today's BookMine video, Victor and I are going to share with you some awesome tips and strategies and also some pitfalls to look out for when it comes to using BookMine to pick up some awesome college textbooks this upcoming August textbook season. But before we get into all that, what's going on, man?
What's up, Joji? Yeah, college textbook season is almost here, and it's a great time to start sourcing college textbooks. And we're going to tell you why. And so if you're really interested in finding and sourcing college textbooks, this video is for you.
Here we are over at BookMine. And of course, Victor, we make it easy for you with the BookMine software. And so just to go ahead and identify those books that are actually college textbooks is pretty simple. You just come over here to the book type, click on this college only button, and now you're going to be seeing books that are just simply college books. Now, the cool thing here is that there's 721 books found in the last hour. Again, we update every single hour, so it's going to be new books every hour, but 700 college textbooks in this hour that we believe are undervalued that potentially are books you'd want to buy. And you'll see that we give you a list of 1 to 25. There's 721. And so what we have done is just scroll through the first few pages and brought out about 5 books that we really want to showcase specific, uh, you know, uh, points about because again, we want to make sure that you're buying good books, that you're avoiding common pitfalls. And so, yeah, we went through a couple of pages without any other filtering and we came up with these books. So let's go ahead and dive right into it.
Yeah.
Starting,
Good.
Victor, with this first book,
Yeah.
Maternity and Pediatric Nursing. All right.
So the first thing that tells us that this is a college textbook is that it both has an August textbook season. So there's a lot of demand there in August. And then there's also a lot of demand in January. So you'll see like the kind of a green bowl that happens both in August and in January. And so that's a telltale sign that this is a college textbook. And so what we're looking at right now is a college textbook. All right. So check there. And now to decide whether or not this is a great college textbook, what are some of the telltale signs, Joji?
Yeah. One thing is to really look at the offer counts on the book. So you'll actually see that the offer count of this college textbook right now is like in the 50s. If you look at it last year, it's similar, and that's good news. If you ever specifically have a textbook, a college textbook that is not necessarily a high school textbook, but if you have a college textbook and you have a massive, massive increase in offer count, like let's say this wasn't at 50, it was at like 90 or 100. Okay,
Yeah.
that means the book is probably going to underperform the sort of a season it had the previous year. But that's one thing to look at is offer count today versus the same date 365 days ago. And then, of course, the most important thing, Victor, which is if you were to buy it at today's price and you look at what the book did and how it performed in the previous seasons, well, would it be profitable? So this particular book, Victor, you can pick it up for right around like $34 plus shipping. So we'll call it 38 bucks. And what were these prices looking like here in July, August, September last year?
We're looking around sometimes around 75 to $80 there at the end of the August textbook season. So yeah.
And again, we can even take off the buy box use price. We're just looking simply at the use price. We can even take out the new price, but just a book that actually holds quite a bit of value. So I'd say buying a book like this is a pretty good bet because of the fact that you could pick it up significantly less than what the book has actually been selling for. And by the way, this picture has a ton of demand. This book selling great. Yeah.
And one of the other main positives of a book like something you want to look at to see if this book is healthy is that the used offer count goes down in both seasons.
Yep.
And so you check it out in the August season and you can see the used offer count goes down a lot. And then also in the January season, maybe not as much, but still goes down. So that's a book that you can see that is a very healthy book and that you can predict that it's going to perform really well this next coming season.
Now, when you open this up on Amazon, you will see that there is actually a newer edition of this book. And it's probably the number one question we get when it comes to college textbook flipping is when do I buy a book if it does or doesn't have a new edition? So this one does have a new edition. So let's give you some tips and strategies for deciding whether or not we would actually buy this book. Everything that I've seen so far, it's checking out. It's looking like this could be a great book, but there's a new edition. Because it's a college book, I specifically do want to take an extra peek at that. So first thing you do is just click on the book to actually confirm that it is actually the next edition. And now it's simply just, verifying it's the same authors. This says fourth edition. The next one should be the fifth edition. And you can see it is the same authors and it is actually the fifth edition. So it is the newer textbook, newest edition. It just came out here and you can see it did really well this January textbook season. Now, Victor, we want to know how this actually impacts the edition that we are wanting to buy.
Right.
So an easy way to figure that out is simply just to take the title of the book, copy it, and go back a previous edition. So I did that here, and we found Maternity and Pediatric Nursing, same authors, It's the 3rd edition, Victor.
Right.
So again, we wanna buy the 4th edition. The 5th edition just came out. Let's go see what the 3rd edition did when it came out and how it performed when the 4th edition came out. Does that make
Right,
sense?
right, right, because we have the data to show us what happened last time this exact thing happened, and now we'll be able to tell from that information to see whether or not, this coming book is actually value to purchase it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing we can see is that the 3rd edition currently is pretty much worthless. It's right around $5 plus shipping. So essentially a worthless book. It still does sell though. That's important to know is that it's still selling
Yep.
even though it's now much older. Now go down, look at the product details. This came out in 2016. Okay. Now what we can do is look at the book that we were wanting to buy when that came out. It looks like it came out in 2020, October of 2020, which would indicate maybe like a 4-year textbook publishing cycle, which makes sense, by the way, because if the 4th edition Victory came out in 2020, then when should the 5th edition come out?
2024.
2024.
Yeah.
I think that's actually what did happen. Let's see. Right, there you go. It's October 2024. So
Wow.
the data is there when we go back. So now all we're going to do is simply say, okay, well, we know that the 4th edition came out in 2020. Let's see how the 3rd edition did when that happened. So we're going to come back to the 3rd edition and we're going to look at the entire historical Keepa data. We'll look at 2020 to 2022. And you can see that this is October of 2020. And it looks like we had what, maybe one more good season?
Yeah.
One more good season there where the used price still stayed high. It did it well. And then after that, even though the sales rank did well, it just, the used price never recovered. And essentially it just kind of went down forever. Right.
Right.
So the lesson to be learned here is that you do have to pay attention to newer editions with college textbooks. And we would say for this 4th edition, which we're interested in buying, I would say it probably has one more good season in it, meaning that if you bought this, likely is going to have a good August season. After that, I'm not so sure. Would you say anything different?
And the reason why here, Joji, is because professors are quick to change editions. And so once they change to the newest edition, there's no real demand left for the older edition. And that's why you have
Right.
to pay attention to whether or not there's a new edition. And on this particular book, we would both say there's one more good season of this book and then it's kind of died. So if you were to purchase this book, which is actually a really good deal right now, make sure you sell it in the upcoming season. Otherwise, you might lose some money on it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next book that we found on just the first couple pages of the college filter on BookMine. We have
Mhm.
statistics for the behavioral sciences. You can see, again, checks all around. So we see demand. Again, for college textbooks, Victor, we're looking for demand in August, September. We're looking for demand in January. Is that there?
Two great bowls. Yep.
Yeah. So
There
nice
is.
check there.
Rough check.
We're also looking for the offer count, like we mentioned, to go down during those seasons. Do we have checks there?
Check, check. Yep.
Check, check.
Both.
So it goes down there.
Yep. Yep.
That's
Yep.
good. And then obviously today's purchase price relative to the sort of shoulder prices of the season has to be profitable. There's a pretty big difference between
There's
the
a big
values.
difference here. This book is gonna give you a really good ROI.
Yeah,
So that
$11
yeah.
here. Looks like
Yep.
the shoulder prices are 40, 50. Sounds great. So you open up the listing, you're like, we're
Yep.
checking to see, oh, no new edition. That's great. But Victor, what does it say up here?
We're restricted. We can't sell
Printed.
this book. Yeah.
Oh, guess what? That's gonna happen. You're gonna be restricted in some college textbooks. It's just the way that it goes. Victor, is it the end of the world if you found a great book but you can't sell it because it's restricted?
Might as well just stop selling textbooks. It's over, Joji. Go and try to start selling Legos or something.
Yeah.
No, it just happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of the really good textbooks, the ones that sell quite often, tend to also be counterfeit likely books. And so Amazon's just trying to save us. And so that's why they restrict books like this.
So, tip to be had or learned here is before you get super super excited, make sure you can sell the book because you don't
Yeah.
want to be buying books that you can't sell and sending them to a prep center. Now, tip here: if you do accidentally buy a book that you shouldn't have bought because you are restricted, you could always try to see if there is a buyback offer and see if potentially you could sell it back. So you go to bookminder.com and you could simply just type in the ISBN of that book and just see, hey, if the book isn't counterfeit likely, like make sure it's not counterfeit likely, then potentially you could sell it back. And in this case, interestingly, the price is like pretty similar to what the buyback price would be. And sometimes, once you get close to the season, you might even be able to make money doing that. But again, we're not saying sell counterfeit books, counterfeit likely books back to buyback companies. All we're saying is that that's an option if the book isn't counterfeit likely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay. So next book we got laboratory and diagnostic tests with nursing implications. So I'm not even going to look at the buy box price or even the new price.
The
Again,
first thing we gotta see whether or not is this a college textbook? So, we both see a bold both in August and January, so yes, this is a college textbook. Our filters are correct there, and, so that's a really huge positive note. Both have mountains, both in August and January, so that's great. The used offer count moves down in August and January, so another great check. And the used offer count from Euro 365 days ago from today and today is about the same. So this all that equals really healthy book.
really healthy book. It's
Yeah.
and then looking at today's price at $18 plus shipping and looking at the shoulder prices of the previous seasons, like obviously we're gonna try to sell in this upcoming season here.
Yeah.
Looking at the shoulder prices of 45, $50, which is a great margin on a book you could buy multiple copies of. And another pro tip here, as you start selling more and more college textbooks, you'll notice that there are differences in the seasons. We'd call this kind of like a extended bowl, maybe not like an
Yeah.
uber amazing bowl, but like an extended bowl. We call this maybe like a medium-sized bowl. All we're kinda saying is that you could sell way more copies in this season versus this copy or
Yeah.
versus this season.
Because
Uh,
that's basically from July all the way to the beginning of October was that bold there in the August textbook season. But in January, it's really just barely just almost just a month, right? The end of December to like the end of January.
and that's also reflected in the actual offer count drops,
Yeah.
right? Not
Right.
very much from an offer count drop during this season in January, but a huge drop there in August. So again, a very healthy book there. And then you'd want to make sure you open it up on Amazon, do your due diligence, make sure that you can buy that copy.
Well, I know we didn't really bring in this into it, Joji, but how many copies would you buy of that book?
Good question. So let's go back to that point that we just talked about the fact that there's way more demand in this upcoming August season relative to the January season. So I'd call this like an extended bowl. I would say an extended bowl like this. I think you could easily buy 20, 30 copies of a book like this. Now, if we were going into the January textbook season, I'd call that maybe like a smaller bowl. So I'd say maybe like up to 5 copies. What would you
Yeah.
say?
Oh, same thing. The fact that we're going to the August textbook season, I'd say 20 copies. And I know that's kind of a surprise for a lot of you guys because you're like, well, I was thinking of just buying one or two. No, this book can handle 20 copies. And
Yeah.
at the price it is right now, I think it's still of a price.
Yep. And again, just because you could buy that many, you also have to ask yourself, should you buy that many?
Yeah.
Because the fact that most of us do have a limited amount of capital and can't you just don't have limitless amounts of money. So just because you could, does that
Doesn't mean
should
you
you?
should. Right.
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 So if let's say you've only got $1,000 to start this with, then I would absolutely not recommend buying 20 copies of this book. I would say buy one or two copies, two copies at the most, because there's so many other books that you want to diversify into and
Hmm.
buy. Because again, Victor and I are not trying to sell you anything. Like we're actually like really trying to help you out. And what that means is we don't want you to lose money. We don't want you to go super deep on one book because
Yeah.
we know that overall in this game, you just need to be right 75, 80% of the time. If you can be right 75 or 80% of the time, meaning if 7 or 8 out of every 10 books you buy perform as you thought they did, and the other 2 out of 10 don't, you are killing it.
You are doing really well as a bookseller.
So
Exactly.
don't spend all of your money buying this one book because of the fact that that's just not a very smart thing to do. Make sure you diversify and buy, many different types of books if that's where you're at. Now, of course, if you have $100,000 to spend, buying 20 or 30 copies of this is not really going all eggs in one basket. It's actually it could be considered being diversified because you've got,
That's a lot of
200 other
capital.
books that you've got 20
Yeah.
copies of. That makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
So
All makes sense.
understand that. Okay.
All right.
Next book that showed up on BookMine again on the first couple pages. Plant Physiology and Development. I love this book because this is my type of book. I love these books that just boom, for some reason or other, they just drop in price. Had sales in, basically the high 40s and then just dropped in price. Really not any bull at all with in terms of the sales rank here, but it's kind of more of like a year round sort of
Yeah.
college book. But
Yeah.
anyways, look at this book on Amazon. So $51 is the buy box price, which is not inflated, by the way. That's actually what the book has been selling for at like the cheapest price.
Yeah.
And look at this, Victor. We got a little offer here at 1987 by Thrift Books. And it goes up to 47.
Wow, just one copy holding it together at $19. Once that one copy goes out, the next
Yeah,
copy's at $47. That's a great book. That's a still of a price.
that's still a price. I mean, this book has performed incredibly well over a long
Yeah.
period of time. And yeah, just
And it just showed up on BookMine, so
let's show it in
that's
the
a
book.
great book to buy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still literally active right now. You could literally go buy it. And I would buy this in a heartbeat in a second. because that's just an incredible deal. So
Yeah.
awesome there. Then we also have this theatrical design book, which we also found the first couple pages, which is interesting because this is sort of getting into the Joji territory, which is like buying those books that sell very infrequently, but consistently. And so here's a college book that's actually going down in price with a repricing war. Again, found by BookMine. And Victor, the reason why I found it is because it's $50. And what was it selling for in January?
$130.
Yeah.
And I know this one's a little bit harder to tell, but this is a college textbook because there's still the amount of demand is clumped up in 2 sections, both in the
Yeah.
August textbook season and the January textbook season. So even though there is not very much demand, the demand is in those 2 seasons. So that's why you also know that this is the college textbook.
And you could go back to 2022 to the start of
Yeah.
2024, and you could
Yeah,
also
that's
see
it.
that. Let's get rid of the new price and and actually zoom out like this so that it comes into view. Get rid of that. Okay. Yeah, you could clearly see that the sales rank here is going to be in the August and January and continue to do that. Now, one piece of advice that we give everyone is if you can count easily, Victor,
Yeah.
or somewhat easily even, if you can somewhat easily count the number of sales rank drops, should you be buying more than a copy?
So when we're talking about celery and drops, we're talking about like little heartbeats, right? Like
Yeah.
straight up down. And no, so if you can count them as you asked, you only want to buy one. And so we can definitely count this.
Yeah. So you'd only want to buy one copy of this. And
Yeah.
even at that, it's undergoing a repricing war. Victor, is anyone likely going to be buying this book who needs it in the next couple months?
No. And so this is actually the main reason why we're making this video right now is because there is very little demand going on. Most of the college students are actually in spring break right now. And even when they come back from spring break, they already have their textbook. So nobody's buying textbook. So this price probably is going to continue to go down a little bit more.
Yeah. So what I would do for a book like this, I would just wait and I would just see how low can it really go. And I would bet the person who buys this next is not actually a college student. It's probably going to be a flipper or a reseller. But this very easily, I mean, look at this price erosion, Victor. It went from 75 down to $50, started on April 14th, and it only took a day to do that.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at this book and you're like, all right, I'm going to track it or I'm going to write a note down, I'm going to come back the next day, it's very likely that this book in a couple of days could be like $30 or like $20, in which case buying a copy is much, much less risky because of the fact that you've got it for a way lower price. And yeah, I think this is a Joji book, right? So I think the cool thing about BookMine is that we find these different types of books, some that sell more frequently, some that sell less
Yeah.
frequently, but really cool book there. All right. Last book that we're going to share with you, again, found in the first couple of pages with just the college textbook filter, was this Applied Digital Signal Processing. And you can see same sort of thing. It's kind of going down to that price. It's down to 45. And again, another book that has done pretty well in
Both August and January. Yep.
at holding a high price. Again,
Great.
Victor, can you count these sales rank drops?
You can.
Yeah. So probably just want to buy a single copy of a book like this. But again,
Right.
this is a price point that could easily be at, you know, $30, $25, $22 in the next week or so. So I'd
Yeah.
heavily monitor a book like that because of the fact that it can be quite great. Now, one last tip that we do want to give you is make sure these are college textbooks. College books are more prone to being counterfeit. So not only make sure that you can actually sell the book and you're eligible to sell a book, but also you can take the ISBN number or the ASIN and go over to the Books Run Counterfeit Probability Checker. Go ahead and type the ISBN in, and it'll go ahead and tell you whether or not you can, whether or not it's likely to be counterfeit or not. So just a last tip there.
And so that'll save you because books that are counterfeit likely more than likely have a law firm that could potentially buy those books and stuff like that. And so that you want to just keep your account safe. And that's why you check on those books.
Yeah, and we've also got some heat and some flack from people in the community, especially from other softwares, about that's being bad advice to tell people to use that. When in reality, it's like you wouldn't really tell somebody that wearing a seatbelt is bad advice because of the fact that even though you know the seatbelt won't necessarily guarantee that your life will be saved, like if you look at the data and you look at the odds, like the statistics of wearing a seatbelt is it's vastly stacked in your favor that if you wear a seatbelt, your chances of survival are vastly higher. So all we're saying is that if you want to be a successful bookseller and you are going to be selling college textbooks, using a tool
Yeah.
that does a good job of clearly identifying the red flags for you and making you avoid those is a good idea.
Yeah,
So,
just taking these safety precautions, Josie, because both me and you have continued to be booksellers for
yeah.
8 years, right? And so that actually shows a lot. That tells you that by being a little bit extra safe, you can continue to sell on Amazon for years.
Yep. So if you want to sign up for a free trial of BookMine, you can do so down below. But college textbook season is coming. I'm pretty sure they didn't cancel college. I'm pretty sure they didn't cancel Christmas either. I
Yeah,
could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they didn't cancel any of those. So it's not like you don't. It's not like you don't know these are coming. Like we know these are coming.
right.
So it's coming. Make sure you go buy some great books. Obviously, BookMine can find them for you pretty easily. And that's all we got for you today. So
Yep.
see you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.